Do you know culture doesn't come from Mars or Jupiter? Do you know we create it? We create the culture through what we tolerate, through what we encourage, the things we stay silent about, the people we support, and the behavior we are willing to participate in to protect ourselves and move forward. Lately, I've been thinking about particular workplace dynamic. How do organizations respond to strong, independent, or assertive personalities, especially when those qualities make others uncomfortable? And by strong, I do not mean perfect or always right. I mean someone who has their own mind, someone who asks questions, who has boundaries and feels comfortable being visible. They do not automatically agree with the most powerful person in the room, and they are not willing to make themselves smaller just to fit in. So, how do workplaces respond to people like that? In a healthy environment, in a healthy workplace, there's no problem. Good leaders and colleagues, secure colleagues, recognize the value different personalities will bring to the table. And on the other hand, in other environment, however, something very different begins to happen, and that is slowly that individual becomes a problem. Not necessarily because they have done anything wrong, but because they do not fit in comfortably into the existing dynamic, and that is where things become interesting or challenging, I would say. Unhealthy workplace culture are rarely created by one terrible individual walking into an office and announcing, "Hello, everyone, I'm here to create a toxic culture." No, obviously, it doesn't work like that. Culture grows slowly. It might begin with gossip that others are willing to listen to. Eventually, somebody becomes the target, while colleagues remain silent because nobody wants to be the next target. Others move closer to the powerful group because it feels safer there. Before long, people discover that agreeing with the right individual brings opportunities, while challenging them creates problems. Gradually, everyone learns the unwritten rule, which is unfortunately called the culture of the organization, like after a few years. And that is about who can speak and who should remain quiet, and who is protected, who can be isolated, who is considered leadership material, and who gets labeled difficult. Then we give all these things a harmless name, and that is office politics. I have always found that interesting because sometimes what we casually call office politics is actually manipulation, is actually bullying, mobbing, isolation, and gossip. People from alliances against colleagues create that environment. Private information gets shared, unhealthy behavior is protected because challenge would be inconvenient. And meanwhile, capable people slowly learn that being silent and invisible is safer than being honest. Somehow we accept this and say, well, that's just a workplace rule. But why? Where does this culture come from? People. It comes from people. Who keeps it alive? Again, people. Which means the power to change is also belong at least partly to people. This is why, for me, this is fundamentally a conversation about inclusion. Inclusion is not simply inviting different people into a room. You can hire people from every background imaginable and still have a deeply exclusive workplace. An organization can have diversity targets, policies, training program, committee, and beautiful statements on its website. But none of that tells me what happens when somebody enters the room and thinks differently. What happens when they disagree? What happens when they ask uncomfortable questions, challenge an inefficient process, or set clear boundaries? How does the organization respond when someone refuses to become smaller just to make everyone else feel comfortable? This is when you discover whether a culture is genuinely inclusive or not. Because inclusion is easy when everybody behaves exactly as expected. The real test comes when someone is different. And I do not only mean different because of gender, because of race, because of nationality or age, disability, or any other characteristics we normally associate with diversity. Sometimes the difference is personality. And it's technically, most of the time, is about personality. And it's been mistaken with race or gender or age or anything. But it is about personality. Perhaps someone is more assertive, independent, or direct. They might ask more questions. They might have a little interest in the office politics or simply need less approval from the group. And that's okay. And that's okay. In certain environments, those differences alone can make someone a target. And that's the sad news. This is where I think we need to look much more honestly at ourselves. When someone becomes a target, there is rarely only a bully and a victim. Usually, it is an entire system develops around them. A few people actively participate, unfortunately. Others encourage the behavior or spread the gossip, and many simply pretend not to notice. And then there are those who know exactly what is happening but remain silent because speaking up could put them at risk. This is how mobbing happens. This is how bullying becomes culture. Not because everyone involved is necessarily an evil person, but because enough people decide that protecting themselves is more important than doing what is right. And I understand that to some extent. I genuinely do understand that to some extent. People need their jobs. They have mortgage, they have families, they have responsibilities and career. They have spent years building. Nobody wants to walk into an office every morning ready to fight the system. Frankly, I do not think they should. I do not think they should. I am not suggesting that we spend our working lives challenging everything around us. That would be exhausting and probably incredibly annoying and unnecessarily. This is not our job. Organizations need structure, hierarchy, rules, cooperation, and people who are capable of accepting decisions they may not personally agree with. That's the reality. A disagreement is not automatically discrimination. A difficult manager is not necessarily a bully. Feeling uncomfortable doesn't always mean the culture is toxic. Likewise, having a strong personality doesn't make someone automatically right. Okay? This is not my argument. I am talking about patterns. Think about a workplace that repeatedly reward conformity over honesty. Over time, employees discover that agreeing with powerful individuals matter more than doing good work. And capable people become isolated because their presence makes others uncomfortable, while everyone around them quietly helps the process continue. This is where responsibility becomes complicated. It's easy to point at the person at the top, the manager, the leader, the individual colleagues. And sometimes, yes, they carry significant responsibility, but culture is always bigger than a single person. It also involves the colleagues who carries gossips from one room to another, the friendly face who learns your vulnerability and later use them against you, the individual who knows who you are and you are being unfairly targeted but joins the group anyway. And perhaps most commonly, the silent observer thinking, thank God it is not me. We need to talk about this. Because those participating in unhealthy system often believe they are protecting themselves. Sometimes they even think they are winning. They gain approval, access, opportunities, and temporarily protection. Perhaps they are finally welcomed into the inner circle. But there is something they often fail to understand. Like when you help an unhealthy system destroy another person, you do not become safe. You become useful to the system for now. Eventually, the system may need another target. And next time, that target could be you. Yes. This is why I believe everyone involved ultimately pays a price. This is how the universe works. For the person being bullied, the damage is obvious. Their confidence, well-being, mental health, career, and sometimes even their physical health can suffer deeply. Gradually, they start questioning themselves. Anxiety follows them to work. They speak less, contribute less, and stop trusting the people around them. This is not what we want in organizations. Many eventually leave. That's when the organization's turnover is high. Others need therapy. Recovery can take months or even years, and people start to do their bare minimum at work. And this is, again, not what we want in organizations. Yet the target is not the only person affected. Those participating in the culture are also being changed by that. Remaining silent about a behavior you know is wrong changes something inside you. So, does betraying someone for approval or joining the gossip simply to remain part of the group will help you? No. Gradually, you adapt. You become more careful. You become more political and less honest. You learn to survive. Then perhaps years later, you look around and realize that you have become part of the same culture you once complained about. This is why toxic cultures consume everyone. Some people are crushed by them, others are absorbed by them, and very few walk away completely untouched. Good for them. Really good for them. It reminds me of weeds growing in a garden. At first, there are only a few, so you ignore them. Removing them takes effort, and you have more important things to do, right? But soon more appears. Eventually, they begin taking over. Healthy plants lose their space. They need to grow, and some become weaker. Others disappear completely. Then one day, you look at the garden and wonder, how did it happen? The answer is simple. It happens slowly. And that's exactly how unhealthy cultures grow, slowly. A conversation here, a piece of gossip there, someone stays silent, a colleague is excluded, another joins the group because standing outside feels dangerous. This is how it grows. This is how it grows slowly. Companies follow compromise until eventually everyone looks around and say, this place is toxic. As if the culture arrived from another planet. It did not. People created, you created, and people maintained it. That's the important thing. It creates by people and it's maintained by people. I have experienced parts of this dynamic myself. I know that it feels like to be told that you are too assertive, and I have experienced gossip isolation and the pressure to become quieter, less visible and easier. I also do not pretend that I handled every situation perfectly. Of course I didn't. I made mistakes. Sometimes I reacted emotionally. I trusted people I probably shouldn't have trusted, and there are situations I would handle differently today. Still, those experiences make me think deeply about something. Why does confidence in one person sometimes create a much discomfort in another person? Why do certain people see a strong personality and immediately feel the need to control, silence, exclude, or even destroy the person? Perhaps more importantly, why others are willing to help them? I think part of the answer is insecurity. Part of the answer could be insecurity. When you're not secure in yourself, another person's confidence can feel like criticism to you. Their independence feel like rejection to you. Their success somehow feels like your failure, while their visibility reminds you of your own fear of being unseen. But none of these things can actually be true. Sometimes someone else's confidence doesn't reduce your value, and you need to think about it. Their intelligence doesn't make you less intelligent. Their success doesn't close the door on your future, and their ability to speak doesn't take away your voice. Destroying that will not make you stronger. Crashing someone else's personality and their presence would not make you any stronger. This is one of the most important things I have learned. Another person's light doesn't create your darkness. And turning off their light will never make you brighter. And for this reason, I believe inclusion has to become much more personal. We cannot only look at organizations and say, what are you doing about inclusion? At some point, we need to turn that question toward ourselves because we take part in it. We people are making the culture. And the organization shouldn't create a policy or a formula for us to be inclusive. We need to start from ourselves. Everyone needs to start from themselves. You should not belong to specific category or a group of people to feel like inclusion matters. Inclusion matters for everybody from every group. Some groups are more vulnerable because they've been excluded for a long time, but that doesn't mean like inclusion is only for a certain type of people. And it's very important to ask yourself, what kind of culture am I helping to create? How do I respond when somebody becomes a target? Perhaps I join the gossips. Perhaps I carry information between groups. I might stay silent. Most of the time, you might stay silent or distance yourself because you are afraid of being involved. And when I meet someone who makes me uncomfortable, how quickly do I decide that they are arrogant, difficult, aggressive, or simply a problem? Maybe a better question would be like, why does this person makes me uncomfortable? Have they actually done something wrong to me? Or are they simply different from me? That distinction matters a lot. Supporting inclusion are Supporting inclusion doesn't require us to blindly support everyone. Of course not. It is very naive to think like that. It certainly doesn't mean pretending that every person is kind, capable, honest, or correct. No, because nobody's perfect. Nor does it mean abandoning accountability. It means judging people fairly. It means challenging behavior without trying to destroy the human being behind it. It means refusing to participate in systems that use people as a weapon against one another. And most importantly, it requires us to understand that disagreement is not disloyalty. Confidence is not automatically arrogance. Boundaries are not aggressive. And difference is not danger. This is how inclusion becomes real. Not through slogans, posters, or one training session everyone might take every year. No, it happens through ordinary decisions. Choosing not to repeat the gossip. Refusing to join a campaign against another person. A manager choosing capability over comfort. It is about a colleague saying, I disagree with this person, but I will not participate in destroying them. To me, that is inclusion. I also believe there is a deeper side to this. You can call it spirituality, we can call it karma, you can call it consequences, human psychology, or whatever makes sense to you. I believe we are shaped by what we repeatedly do. You cannot spend years manipulating people without being changed by manipulation. You cannot repeatedly betray someone without affecting who you become. No, it doesn't work like that. And you cannot build your success by destroying people while expecting the process to leave you completely untouched. No, it doesn't work like that. We spend so much time asking ourselves, what can I gain? Can I get the promotion? Can I gain influence? Can I become part of the inner circle? Maybe we should ask another question as well. Like, who am I becoming to get there? And is that person someone I actually want to be? Or because you can win the game and still lose yourself? This brings me back to the garden. Weeds will always exist, right? So will insecurity, bullying, manipulation, and difficult personalities, and toxic culture in general. We cannot remove every unhealthy individual from every organization. And I'm not suggesting that we can try. No, we cannot. It's impossible. What we can do is decide what we feed, what we participate in, and what we allow to grow around us. That's where we can have a part in. Culture doesn't come from Mars, like I said. It doesn't come from Jupiter, like I said. It comes from people. It comes from us. If a workplace is destroying people's mental health, silencing capable employees, rewarding manipulation, and teaching everyone that survival depends on becoming a smaller version of yourself, quieter and less honest, we cannot pretend the culture is some mystery force that appeared on its own. No, people created it. We created it. People maintained it. And whether intentionally or not, many people have dirty hands in keeping it alive. This is why inclusion matters. Inclusion is not about making everyone the same. It is about creating enough space for people to be different without being destroying for it, without being bullied for it, and without being worried about losing their job, losing their social status, or things like that. It means like accepting differences, different personalities, ideas, communication style, ways of thinking, levels of confidence, backgrounds, lives. You do not have to like everyone. That's not healthy behavior to like everyone. No, some characters or behaviors are likable to some people and those are not likable to others, and that makes sense. You certainly do not have to agree with everyone or become their friends. But surely we should be capable of working alongside people without trying to destroy them simply because their presence makes us uncomfortable. So the next time someone becomes a target, think before joining the conversation. When information is passed to you, consider why you are being trusted with it. If silence feels safer, ask yourself what that silence is protecting. And before deciding that someone is difficult, consider whether they have genuinely done something wrong or Simply refuse to become what others expected them to do. And ask yourself, what am I participating in? Who benefits from my involvement? And what kind of culture am I helping to create? And perhaps most importantly, who am I becoming? At the end of the day, we all have choices. We can feed the weeds or make room for something better to grow. We can help unhealthy systems consume people or refuse to become part of that machinery. We can continue the cycle, or whenever we genuinely have the power to choose differently, we can interrupt it. That doesn't require becoming a hero, no. No, it's very simple. It doesn't require like fighting every battle or challenging everything that existed before us. No, it doesn't mean that. Sometimes it simply requires integrity. It requires integrity. The awareness to recognize what is happening, the courage to think before joining, and enough humanity to say, like, I will not help destroy another person simply because everyone else has decided they are the problem. For me, that is where inclusion begins, with not with a banner, not with a policy, but with people, with us. And with the culture we choose to create when nobody is watching.